Good morning everyone. Welcome you all to the Virtual School. First of all, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe to my channel to get the latest notification and latest updates about any videos. Also, like the content and share the content. It is really motivating for me to put up more good stuff for you. Okay, so today we will be continuing our discussion and we will be discussing question number 21 till question number 32. This would be the last part of the solution series, okay, and for the chapter 1, and thereon we will move to chapter 2 for the further discussions, okay. So in question number 21 we have to write a program to find the reverse of a number. That is, suppose you have, if you have entered number 1, 2 and 3, then we have to print 3, 2 and 1. Okay, this is a very simple program. Why? Because earlier in the programs we have already seen how to extract a digit by the modulus operator and the divide operator. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to just extract the digits, okay, multiply it by 10 and then add and then keep adding the digits to it. Okay, now let's see the program in action. Okay, now here you can see the question number 21. I have taken an input in the variable n, okay, that is enter the number, and then I have changed it into int. Okay, then I have taken a reverse number because I would be adding the numbers to this reverse number. Okay, so I have taken its initial value as 0. Okay, now till the value of n is greater than 0, okay, I am iterating over it. Why? Because it's very simple. I am just extracting the digits. Okay, then what I will do, like here, n mod 10 will actually extract the digit, and reversed into 10 will actually move the digit 1 unit place ahead. Okay, so suppose if we all like for the initial value, let's take this. Okay, I'm just showing you the dry run program here. Like suppose if I have taken n is equals to 12. Okay, so the initial value of reverse number was 0. Okay, then we have multiplied it by 10, the answer becomes 0. Okay, and by modulus operator we will extract the last digit. Okay, so plus 2. So what do we got? We got 2. Okay, now for the next iteration we have to check whether the value of n is greater than 0 or not. Okay, the value of n is still greater than 0. Why? Because n divided by 10 will make it 1. Okay, and it is greater than 0. So the next time the reverse number value earlier was 2, then we have then we have multiplied the value with 10. Okay, and what it will do, it will shift the value of 2 by 1 units place. Okay, that is, earlier it was 2, now it will become 20. Similarly, if we multiply it by 10 third time, it will move 1 unit place ahead even more. Okay, that is 20 will become 2000. So you can see 2 is shifting the places. Okay, from right to left. Okay, so 2 becomes 20 and then we add 1 to it and the answer is 21. Okay, so as you can see, 12 has been completely shifted to 21. Okay, so that's how we reverse a number. Okay, now let's see the execution. Here, enter a number. Suppose I have entered 5, 8 and 9. Okay, so the answer must be 9, 8 and 5. Okay, as you can see, enter the number 589, the reverse number is printed as 985. Okay, so this is the program for question number 21. For question number 22, let's see what the question is. Question number 22 says write a program to input a username and password and check whether the given username and password are correct or not. Okay, now for this you need to have something, some username or password stored in your program by itself. Okay, from which you will be matching the user input, isn't it? Like suppose in your day-to-day life, if you enter any username or password in while logging into your Facebook account or something, okay, then when you press enter, that is when you submit your login form, what it does, it sends the data, the username and the password, to the server. Okay, and there your actual username and password was stored while you signed up. Okay, so what it does, it just matches the username and password and then returns whether the user is authorized or not. Okay, so similarly here also, because we don't have a database or anything like that, okay, for now we will just store our actual username and actual password here. Okay, why I have taken getPass, because getPass is a module that is available in Python by which you can take the password input. Now Why is it important? Because the passwords must be encrypted. That is, you must not be able to see those passwords. Okay. Why? Because in most of the phishing sites, or phishing sites are basically sites which are which is a hacking basically a hacking mechanism used by hacker. Okay, I will not dive deep into it. It's just to extract your information without you knowing. Okay, that is, you would be seeming to log in into your Facebook account, but actually you would be submitting some other form which looks like the login form. Okay, and the hacker just stores that data and logins you into the account itself, and you feel that you have logged in into your Facebook account, but actually in the middle the hacker has actually extracted your details. Okay, now when we use get pass and when we enter the password, you won't be able to see any input on the terminal. Okay, but your password would be inputted correctly. Okay, and then you can match it. Okay, so this is just a saving mechanism or a defense mechanism that you use against hacking techniques. Okay, now let's see this program into action. Question number 22.py. Enter the username. Let's just input the correct value. Okay, like the username I have already saved is virtuoushool, and password. Now see, I am inputting the password, but as you can see, there is no input on the terminal. Okay, but the password is actually inputted. Now if I press enter, you can see user authenticated message. Now this will only come if the password matches the password that I have entered, and username matches the username that I have actually entered. Okay, else it must give unauthenticated. Let's run this program again. Like suppose if I press any random username and random password. Okay, as you can see, user unauthorized is the output. Okay, so our program works correctly. Now coming over to the next question, that is question number 23. Question number 23 has following parts, that is A, B, C, D, E. Okay, we will do the entire question in one question itself, because they are all sub parts of a major program. Okay, that is, first part we have to count the number of characters. In the second part we have to change the first character of the string in capital letter. Like for example, if you if you have written pencil in small letters. Okay, now in the second part we have to make P capital of the word pencil. Okay, question number in the C part we have to check if a given character is a letter or a number. That is, it can be a letter or a number and nothing else. Okay, so it must be alphanumeric. Okay. Now in the D part we have to change the lower case to the uppercase. Okay, and in the E part we have to change one character of the string with the another character. So let's see this program. It's also a very simple program. There is nothing much more to do in it. Okay, now let's see question number 23. As you can see, I have written it quite clearly, part A, B, C, D and E. Okay, now for the part A we have taken the input on which we will be performing our operations, and now to print the number of characters I have used len keyword. Okay, that is, if you use len, it basically gives you the length of the entire string. Okay, because what is a string? A string is a set of characters. Okay, for you it must be a word, but for the language it's actually a set of characters. So by using len you can count the set of characters. Okay, and you can simply print it. Okay, the number of characters would be printed. For the part B, okay, we have to capitalize the word. Okay, like for example, if you have taken actions, then it will become actions. Okay, so the word after the first letter capitalized is by you can do it by dot capitalize. That is, take the input and then capitalize it. So it will just make the first letter of the word as capital, and if it is already capital, it will have no change. Okay, now for the part C we have to check if a character is numeric or alphanumeric. Okay, or it is a special character. That is, character can be numeric or alphabet but nothing else. Okay, for that I have used for loop. Okay, for loop I have taken a word character on which will be getting the all the character values of the string, and then I have taken 0, and by using the len operator I have taken the range. Okay, that is, the range would be lying from 0 to 1 less than the total length. Why? Because each character is indexed and index starts from 0. Okay, so then I have printed the character and I have checked whether it is numeric or not by using isAlnum. Okay, that is alnum is the function provided by the Python, like the capitalize, which helps us in checking whether a particular character is alphanumeric or not, and that's what the question is asked. Okay, now for the part D, I have changed the entire input to an uppercase by using the uh, upper operation on the string. Okay, this will just change the case from lowercase to the uppercase. Okay, and if it is already in uppercase, it will have no change. Okay, and now for the part E, you have to change a particular character to another character. Okay, now for that, at the least you want is to have the index of that character. Okay, like at what index do you want to change the letter. Okay, so I have taken an index, enter the number you want to change the character at. Okay, that is, suppose you have a string of length 10. Okay, and you want to change the fifth character of the string. Okay, so I have taken the index. Okay, now with what letter you want to change it. Okay, that I have taken the input. Okay, then I have taken the list of character by using the list operator. Okay, now by when you use list and you provide a string into it, it just divides the entire string into characters. Okay, like if, for example, if you have taken actions, then it will divide it in following manner. Okay, that is A, C, T, I, O, N separately. Okay, now you have to just because lists are mutable. Why I have done this? Because strings are immutable. If you have missed my lecture on strings and dictionaries and tuples, please watch it. There I have discussed the strings are immutable, so you can't change any character at a particular position. Okay, but when the thing comes to a list, the lists are mutable. So at a particular index, you can change the letter. Okay, then you can just join the entire list by using the join operator. Okay, and then your string will be formed. Okay, now let's see this entire program with all the parts in action. Okay, question number 23.py. Now enter a string you want to perform operations at. Like suppose I have taken action @s. Suppose. Okay, that is, I have included a special character. Okay, now as you can see, the number of characters in this string are 7. Word after first letter capitalized is A has been made capital, but I have already inputted a capital letter, so it had no change. Okay, now character A is alphanumeric true, character C is alphanumeric true. Okay, now see, at the rate part, the character at the rate is alphanumeric false. Okay, so it has checked whether a character is whether a character is alphabet or a numerical. Okay, now changing it to the uppercase, all the actions have been changed to the uppercase. Okay, now I have to enter a number that you want to change character at. Suppose I want to change the character at position 2. Okay, now what do I want to change it with? I want to change it with X. Okay, so as you can see, the second position, that is 0, 1 and 2. Okay, that is the T has been changed with X. Okay, Axios it has become. Okay, so this is how we write the entire question number 23. Okay, now moving over to the question number 24. Okay, now let's see what the question number 24 says. Question number 24 says that you have to write a program to input a string and to find the number of words in a string. Okay, now here we have to take something, we have to take a presumption. What? That is, every string has many words. Okay, and the words are divided by spaces. Okay, because you can't take underscore or anything else, because we are taking, like in general English also, when you write a sentence, what you do is you write a sentence and you separate the words by a space. Okay, so I am assuming that all the words are separated by a space. Okay, so I have taken the user input, that is, I have taken the entire string as the input, and what I have done, I have split the input from the space part. Okay, then I have printed the list. Okay, that is, when you split the string, what it returns, it returns you the list. Okay, then you can simply use the len operator to find the length of the list, and you will get the total words in a string. Okay, now let's see this question in action. Question number 24.py. Input a sentence, let's say Python on virtual school. Okay, so as you can see, we have a string Python on virtual school, and it contains 4 letters. Okay, now you can see Python on virtual school, and total words in a string are 4. Okay, so it's very simple, it's straightforward, there is nothing much to do in it. Okay, now coming over to the question number 25. Okay, that is, we have to write a program to input any 2 strings and check whether the strings are equal or not. Okay, now it's again very simple, where there is nothing much to do about it. That is, by using double equals, you can simply check whether a string is equal to the another string or not. Okay, similarly, if there is nothing that I have to explain in this. There is a simple double equals to operator that is used. Okay, like for example, question number 25.py, like input the first string. Suppose I have input virtual, and as the second string, if I input school. No, both of them are not equal, it's true. Now let's see a valid input. Okay, like first input is virtual, second input is virtual. Okay, now both of them are equal. When both the strings are equal, our output was equal. When they were not equal, the output was not equal. So our program works perfectly fine. Okay, now coming over to the question number 26. Okay, now in question number 26, we have to differentiate between tuple and list. Okay, now this is a very important question. Why? Because this question has the high probability of being asked in your board examination. Okay, why? Because most of the students get confused between tuples and list. I want you all to pause the video, note it down, and repeat and just listen to what I am telling you. Okay, and just keep in mind. Okay, now the tuples are denoted by circular braces. First of all, tuples are immutable. Okay, and when we come to list, they are denoted by square brackets. Okay, and they are mutable. That is, the values in a list can be changed, but the values in the tuples can't be changed. Okay, the tuples are denoted by circular braces. Okay, now you just have to keep this in mind. Okay, so the tuples are denoted by circular braces, they are immutable. Lists are denoted by square brackets, and they are mutable. Okay, so this is the main difference between for the question number 26. Okay, now moving over to the question number 27. That is, we have to write a program to input n numbers and to insert any number at a particular position. Okay, that is, you have to take n numbers as the input from the user, and after taking the input, that will form a list, obviously. Okay, now after taking the input, you have to ask the user as to at what position that you want to insert another number. Okay, and at that particular position you have to insert that number. Okay, now coming over to the program, the question number 27. Let's see. Okay, that is, I have taken number of elements, that is, enter the number of elements, and I have taken the integer input. Okay, then I have taken the list of numbers. Okay, now this list of numbers are initially empty. That is, this will not contain any data as for now, and we will take the input from the user. Okay, so this is just a prompt message. Okay, that is, we get how many elements does the user want as the input. Okay, so what I have done is I have taken a for loop, and I have taken number of elements plus 1. Okay, I won't be explaining the range operator because in my earlier lectures also I have explained it many times. Please refer to them. Okay, now this will create a range from 1 till the number of elements, and I will easily be able to input the numbers. Okay, now what I am doing is I am using the append operator. Okay, now when you use the append operator, what it does is it just appends the input to the last position of the list. Okay, now suppose the list was initially empty, the append operator will insert suppose a digit. Okay, then you again use the append operator, then it will insert another digit at the last of the earlier input. Okay, now suppose you have earlier input 1, now the next input is 2, so 1 then comma 2 will appear in your list. Okay, similarly 3 and 4, it's just like a queue. Okay, the append operator acts just like a queue input into the list. Okay, so now after taking all the inputs, obviously, okay, we will ask enter the element to insert. Okay, that is, we will ask what element do you want to insert and at what index do you want to insert. Okay, after that we will use the insert operator as to where to insert, that is the index, and we will pass the element, and the list would be modulated accordingly, and then it will be printed. Okay, now let's see this program in action. Question number, now enter the number of elements. Suppose I take 5 elements. Okay, the first element is 5, 6, 8, 9. Okay, and similarly 42. Let's just take. Okay, now it is asking me enter the element to insert. Suppose I take 100. Enter the index to insert. Suppose I take 2. Okay, now as you can see, at the second position, my element has been inserted. Okay, so this is how the entire program works. Okay, now coming over to the question number 28. In question number 28, we have to write a program to input n numbers and to search any number from the list. Okay, that is, we have, like in the question number 27, similarly we will take the inputs from the user, the n numbers input from the user, and we have to search with entire list as to whether that particular number is present in our list or not. Okay, now for that let's see the program. Question number 28. Question number 28, let's see. The first part is very much similar to the question number 27. Okay, the number of elements have been inputted. Okay, we have taken an empty list. We take the input from the user, and we append it to the list. Okay, so this is very simple. Now we take the input as to what elements you want to search in the list. Okay, and we have taken a counter which tells whether that element is present in the list or not. Okay, so initial value is 0. If the value is found, the element found value will become 1. Okay, if it is not found, the value will remain 0, and on that basis we will judge whether the element has been found or not. Okay, so what I have taken is, I have taken a for loop and I have iterated over the entire element. Okay, and I just match each element of the list with the element to be searched. Okay, if the element is found, I make the value as 1. Okay, then I print the element is found at the following position. Now suppose the entire loop has been run and element was not found, so the element found value will remain 0. Okay, now if the value is 0, that is element was not found. Now let's see this program. Question number 28.py. Enter the number of elements. Suppose I take 5 elements again, and 8, 9, 10, 45, 65. Okay, now enter the element to be searched. Okay, now let's input an element which is not in the list. Suppose 11. Okay, the element was not found. Program is correct. Now let's again take the inputs. I have taken 3 inputs this time. Okay, so 5, 6, and let's take 11. Now enter the element to be searched. Suppose I have inputted 6. Okay, the element was found at position 2. So that's how we run the entire program. So our program is quite correct. Okay, and now moving over to the next question, that is question number 29 and 30. Okay, now as you can see, I have taken just one program to show question number 29 and 30. Why? Because they are interlinked. Okay, now let's see both the questions. In question number 29, we have to write a program to take the n input where we will take customer names and phone number, and in the question number 30, we have to search the all the inputs for the customer name and display the phone number of that customer if it exists in the list. Okay, so both the program, as you can see, are interlinked, so we will solve them in just one question. Okay, now what I have done is, now here I have used dictionary. Now why I have used dictionary? Now in this question you will come to know why the dictionaries are more important and how they can store a large amount of data and can reduce your searching complexity. Okay, as you can see, the name phone dictionary I have taken. Okay, and in dictionary, if you have missed my lecture, please watch my earlier lectures. The dictionaries are basically a data structure which stores the data in key value form. Okay, that is, it stores the value in a key and assigns a value to it. So simply if you want to access any particular value, you can just take that key and search it in the dictionary and it will give you the value. Okay, right away, and you don't have to loop anything, you have to just input the key. Okay, now let's see the program and you will come to get a more hold of it. Now I have taken a variable n and I have entered the number of the customers. Okay, and I have taken the integer input. Okay, now what I have done is I just loop over the entire numbers, and what I do is I just append all the data to the dictionary. Okay, now how do I do it? I have displayed a number, that is enter the customer name and phone number separated by colon. Okay, now why I have done that? Because I will be later on separating the values by the colon, and I will be inputting customer name as the key and phone number as the value. Okay, now as you can see here, I have used format operator. Why? Because if dynamically you want to insert any value in a string, you can use format operator. Suppose I have put here braces, okay, and I have provided I value. Now when Python will execute this line, it will replace these braces with this I. Similarly, if suppose I have taken two braces or three braces, okay, and I have provided comma separated values here, suppose j and k. I'm just taking the example, okay. Then it will replace all the braces accordingly. Okay, so this is how you use to print the dynamic strings in a Python. Okay. Anyways, then as I've already told you, I just split the data, and in the name phone dictionary I make the name as the key and the phone number as the value. Okay, so it will just make a dictionary where the name would be the key and the phone number would be the value. Okay, now what I do is I print the name phone dictionary. Okay, that is all the items, the name and the phone number, I just print it. Okay, now for the question number 30, when I have to search a particular key, okay, now here I will ask, okay, the key to be searched, that is enter the key that you want to be searched, that is enter the number, enter the name that you want to search in the dictionary. Okay, now by using simple in operator, you can search the entire dictionary for a particular key. As you can see, this is a very simple approach. Okay, when suppose if I have taken the list in place of the dictionary, what you would be doing is you would be looping over the entire list to check for a particular value. Now by using the key value pair, your entire search has been subsidized to just one line. Okay, that is it has been optimized to a particular just one line by using the key, and you have just taken in operator and you have checked whether the particular key is in the dictionary or not. If it is, then you have displayed the phone number at that key. If it is not, the customer does not exist. Okay, now this is a very simple approach. Now let's just run the question number 29 and 30. Enter the number of customers. Suppose I will take two customers. Okay, now the first customer name, let's take Mohit, colon 9415108, anything, any number, any random number. Now this is the number. Now second, let's take Rohit, and okay, now again a number. Now as you can see, the name Mohit and the phone number has been printed separately. Okay, now enter the key to be searched. Now let's take Mohit. Okay, as you can see, simply the phone number of the search person is this. Okay, now it has been returned. So see, so this is the power of the dictionary, and this is how you use it. Okay, for storing big data and large amount of data and searching it just optimizes the entire searching pattern. Okay, now this concludes our question number 29 and 30. Now coming over to the question number 31. Now for the question number 31, now the Python that I have installed is 3x, that is, it is the latest Python. Okay, but in the book, the Python they are dealing with is 2.7. There is not much difference between 2.7 and 3 as far as your syllabus is concerned, but the compare operator was present in 2.7. But later on it was removed. Why? Because it was very redundant and it can be easily obtained by another function. Okay, now I will show you what the CMP function used to do, and how it used to calculate the value and how it used to compare the two values. Okay, now As you can see, CMP is an inbuilt function in Python. In your Python, if you have 2.7, the CMP function is an inbuilt function in the Python, and it was used to compare two objects and return the value to a given value. ठीक है? That is, it returns a particular integer value denoting whether the first object was greater than or less than or equal to the next object. Okay, it does not return true or false. Okay, that is, it does not return boolean value, rather it returns negative, 0 or a positive value. Okay, for a given input. Now, how it was used to do it? Now, what was the actual code of a CMP operator? That is, you just pass the two variables, the first value and the second value. Now it checks if the A is greater than B, okay, minus if A is less than B. Okay, true and false. Okay, now suppose if the A is greater than B, then the value will become 1. Okay, if A is smaller than B, so this will become false. Okay, so the value would be 1. Okay, now if suppose A is greater than B, 0, then A is less than B, 0. Okay, now suppose if both the values are equal, okay, then 0 minus 0 will become 0 and it will return 0. And suppose if A is smaller than B, okay, then this will become 0 and this will become 1, so the output would be minus 1. So that's how the compare operator used to work. Okay, now let's see this compare operator in action. As you can see, I have already taken 3 inputs. In the first part I have taken A smaller and B bigger, so the compare operator returned minus 1. Okay, in the next part I have taken both of them as equal, so it has returned 0. And in the last part I have taken A as larger and B as smaller, so it has returned a positive value. So that's how a compare operator was used to work in those days. Okay, now the entire structure has been changed and many redundant functions or many inbuilt functions have been improved. So compare was removed in the latest part. So now coming over to the question number 32. Now this is the last question. To write a program to input n numbers and to reverse the set of numbers without using any functions. That is, now here the what the question demands us is that we don't use any inbuilt function of the Python. Rather, we go on and we develop a logic to input the numbers and to reverse the set of numbers without using any function. That is, all the that entire list that we have inputted must be reversed without using any functions. Okay, now let's see this easy program. This is a very simple program again. We have taken the amount of numbers that you want to input, then we have taken a list that is empty. Now then we have again taken a list which will contain the reversed list actually. Okay, now we have taken the entire input like we used to take, that is, we input the first number, second number, third number, any amount of numbers that you have inputted. Okay, so then I have printed the entire list. Okay, now I have run a while loop in reverse order. Okay, that is, we take the list that we have formed after the entire input is traversed in the reversed fashion, that is, from back to top. Okay, and we just take each element and we just insert that element or append that element in the reverse list, and by doing so ultimately our entire list would be reversed. Okay, so without using any inbuilt functions, we have reversed the entire list. Now let's see this program in action. This is the final program, question number 32.py. Enter the number of elements. Now suppose I have entered 5 elements. Enter the first element, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now as you can see, the reverse list is 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. So this is how we conclude the question number 32. Okay, now this was the last program. In my next lecture, we will be continuing our discussion from chapter 2, and we will be discussing the concept of object-oriented programming. Basically, all the OOPS concept would be discussed. Okay, so thank you everyone for watching, and don't forget to subscribe my channel and also like the content, and do let me know if you have any doubts or any questions in the comment section. I will surely resolve them. Okay, thank you.
If you liked our content, kindly like, share and subscribe us so that we get motivated.
and we can provide you more informative videos on the same subject.